Aloha, this is Sean Marlin coming to you from Hawaii. Today, this video is going to go over instantiating two instances of the same service and having a parent service uh, orchestrate between those two instances. We're going to do it in two parts. The first is just going to be setting up running with two instances of the same service. The second part will actually make them do something interesting. So let's get started. I'm showing you here that I already have Docker infrastructure up and running. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new StatePipe service solution. So we'll go Tools, New StatePipe Solution. We want to go to the uh, repos directory, select that folder. Um, okay, and of course it went behind. So I'm going to stick with the company name AAA like I've been doing all along, AAA dot, and we'll call this sorry, in sync. Okay, and that's going to bring up our our solution here. We're just going to build that. Okay, this is going to take a while. You're going to see a lot of times that I do rebuild, and part of the reason for that is because the rebuild, there's a post-build step on any of the class libraries to actually copy over the appropriate certificates in the output folder in case you want to. It's in the program data directory folder where you have your log files, your certs, and your config files. They're all in separate directories, but they're underneath that one header for your service. Um, and that's in case I want to launch it from the debugger and do some debugging, but normally I launch it from the script, and that automatically does the copying over for you too. Um, so the next thing we want to do, now that it's done, is we're going to add another StatePipe service to it, and we're going to call this just worker, basically being like the child that we had before. Um, we're going to reload this real quick because InSync is going to orchestrate the two instances of the InSync worker. We're going to add a project reference. Oh, wait, add project reference. And we'll add it to InSync worker. Click OK. Now we're going to build the solution. Okay, and lastly, we want to create a proxy to InSync worker. Now, we're just going to call this worker. Okay, um, worker, and we're going to hit OK. Here, I have a little bit of a cable issue here. I'm going to do this. Okay, so now we are going to select the worker DLL and open that. And you'll see it's going to take a few seconds here, but actually not a few seconds. It generated the proxy. Okay, we'll just click OK there, or yes. And we'll go down to the bottom as we always do, because this is where the interesting stuff is. And we'll see that it has all the normal commands and events, the public commands and events that, or triggers and events that worker comes default when you create that solution. So I'm just going to rebuild, just my habit, the whole thing. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to specify that we're going to have two that InSync, the AAA, that InSync service is going to have two instances of the worker service, and it wants to coordinate those. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the default service configuration. I'm just going to reformat this. I'm going to Control A, Control K, Control F, just to make it look a little prettier here. Um, and I'm going to copy this line. This is uh, the line for the worker moniker, the worker service that was automatically added for you to your proxy configurations list. Um, Shift end, okay. I'm going to copy that and put it right below it. Okay, so we're, we're not done, obviously, because this would actually cause some, if we left it like this, would cause some bad stuff to happen. Just for one, there's two proxies with the same moniker, and that's an issue. So we're going to actually change this moniker, but we have to define it first. So let's go to that definition of where that is. Let's again just reformat that so it looks prettier. We're going to add another moniker here, okay? But there's certain restrictions, okay? Now, and I'll show you that in a second, but we're going to call this worker one moniker, and we're going to call it worker dot one. Okay, so because we got two instances, so there's a little bit misnomer. We have proxies, two services, but there's a state pipes proxy, and then there's this. Um, if we look in here at what this class inherits from a base generated proxy. So, but when we look at here, what happens is this base generated proxy is actually built to handle multiple instances. So it gets the state pipes proxy factory, which generates all the proxies that's in the default service configuration. And it says, oh, I am the base generated proxy for every state pipes proxy that starts with worker, this prefix right here. So if we go back to where uh, well, the moniker worker, its moniker starts with worker. So if we go back to here where we define the proxy monikers, we see that, okay, there's a worker moniker and then there's a worker one moniker. And what that means though is if you have um, proxies to multiple services, the prefix or the starting of the moniker has to be unique and distinct among all those different services so that this code in the worker proxy doesn't confuse the type, right? It was for simplification when I coded it, but I think it's a restriction that we can live with. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back to service configuration, and we're going to call this one worker one moniker. But we're not done because right now that means I'd have two different state pipes proxies, but they have the same RabbitMQ exchange names and queue names. So we have to add a little something here to the end of the definition of the proxy configuration. So when you're getting the default service configuration, we're going to do it dot, and we're going to add postfix. And just to keep it consistent with the changes we made to the moniker, we're going to call this postfix dot one. Okay, and of course, we'll just add another parenthesis there. Okay, so this says your second instance of the worker service will have everything the same except for the queues and exchanges to in order to communicate with it. It's going to have the same as worker, but it has a postfix on those names of dot one. This also affects the the directory for the configuration, the log files, and the certificates under program data for this service, which will also be, the same as worker, but it's going to have a dot one in the directory name. So that allows everything to be distinct. Okay, well, believe it or not, for the service, that's all we have to do, and we're going to just rebuild that. And but we have a little bit more work to do. So we're now going to go into that insync directory and under run script, and it just so happens, I've done this multiple times, so it just popped up there. But um, so for me, it would be repos, in sync, and then run scripts. So I'm gonna, to get the password, as always, I'm gonna go under Docker infrastructure start. I'm gonna do start and stop, and I'm gonna open all three of those. Okay, so what we have to do is modify start. Now, in the latest version of StatePipes, I've actually added some helper methods or helper functions, excuse me, in start.ps1 to allow you to simplify to aid a developer in the deployment of the different deployment scenarios that we're going to go through, and with this one being multiple instances. So what we're going to use start service, and you can see it right here. Start service, it starts the in-sync service, and then another start service starts the in-sync worker. But we want one more instance of the in-sync worker. So we're going to copy this line, copy and paste it right below. But again, in this start service, the second parameter right here is the postfix. The first one didn't have a postfix, but we know the second one that we just added has a postfix of .1, and this has to be this exactly the same as we just modified the default service, the service configuration. Okay, so .1. Okay, and that's all we have to do. So we are going to launch that right now. And by the way, there's no modifications to stop script that needs to be done. And we are going to bring those over here to show you. It started up 3 tabs, one to the in-sync service, one to the worker service, and one to the worker.1 service. So let's get the password and put that in there. We're going to have to go in here to Docker Infrastructure Start. We're going to copy that password. We're going to go back to our Chrome tabs, and we are going to paste, connect, paste, connect, and paste, connect. Okay, so those should all show up. And one of the things, we're going to go into communication status. We're going to let it update. And you can see we are exchanging heartbeats with the in-sync service, and the in-sync service is actually exchanging heartbeats with the worker and the worker.1 service. So everything's good, up and running. Um, and literally, that's all you have to do in order to start up 2 instances of the same service and have a parent service that's orchestrating between the two. Now, um, there's a lot more to that to make that useful, and that'll be in part 2 of the video. So for now, I'm just going to sign off right here and say aloha and ahuyo.